coming, right? They're coming online. Yeah. Oh, they're coming online. Okay. Guys, we're not allowed to take our masks off for this evening.
Well, we were told we could the other night.
Fine.
That's a great question. Yeah, Christine said we couldn't this morning. People at the podium took it off. But I don't
Yeah, but that wasn't today.
which is why I thought this kind of
Excellent. Can whoever has control of the music turn it down a little bit? Very good. All right. Well, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting of the Community Preservation Committee to order. I believe we have a quorum, but may we have a roll call of attendance?
Chairman Bakey,
Here.
Vice Chairman Slagle,
Here.
Member Gallivan, Member Liang,
Here.
Member Butenhuis,
Here.
Member Shea, Member McCall, Member DePeza,
Here.
Member Linehan.
Okay.
Christine just joined.
Sounds like we do have a quorum, so we're ready to begin. Our first order of business this evening is the minutes of the November 18th meeting for approval. Do we have any comments on those minutes? If not, could I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Can make a motion to approve the November 18th minutes.
Seconded.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. So what we're going to be doing this evening, I'd like to, describe the event, the process. We're going to ask each of the applicants. We have, this is our third meeting of 3 where we've been hearing from the applicants for funding this year. We'd like to invite the applicants up one at a time to make a relatively brief presentation of their project. And then we will ask them to remain to answer questions from the members of the board. We are not making any decisions this evening, nor are we deliberating, but we are asking questions that will help the committee members understand the projects and understand the implications of supporting those projects when we do get to deliberations, which I believe will begin at our January meeting. I also need to recuse myself from the first one we have this evening, so I'm going to turn the mic over to Eric Slagle, and I will return for the next order of business.
So do we still have a quorum, Dylan?
Yeah, Member McCall and Gallivan joined.
Okay, thank you. So the next order of business before the committee is continued business, CPA application for 243 Worthen Street. The Whistler House Museum of Art has applied to the Community Preservation Committee seeking $400,000 of CPA funds for an outdoor recreation project. The applicant proposes to expand and rehabilitate the existing park at 243 Worthen Street, abutting the Whistler House Museum. The application proposes to turn the existing park into a multifunctional green space. I believe we have the applicant here. I'll turn the floor over to you.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Bogosian. I'm the president and executive director of the Whistler House Museum of Art. Thank you all so very much for this opportunity and for changing the date of my presentation due to illness. I'm feeling better, so it's great. This is very important to the Whistler House Museum of Art, this project. So I wrote down some notes to present to you today so I wouldn't forget anything in my presentation. I believe you know that this open space expanded park project is part of a bigger Whistler House Museum of Arts and Cultural Center project, which is the construction of a new two-story state-of-the-art building. This edifice will be a very important addition to the City of Lowell's arts and cultural community and to the community overall. It will add a vitality and economic well-being to the residents, businesses, restaurants, and small shops in the entire area. It is important to stress to you the amount of people that the Whistler House Museum of Art services through this park and the historic Whistler House edifice. It's not only people from low-income and middle-income members of the Acre neighborhood that we are situated in, but the North Common Apartments, which is located right behind the Whistler House and Park, is made up of over 2,000 residents. There are over 10,000 affordable housing residents throughout the City of Lowell. We help to service these people. We also serve a very diverse population of Lowell in general, but folks from adjoining towns and communities. Our partnerships with other nonprofits such as Girls Inc., CTI Residents, which are right next door, and the Hellenic School, who use the park on a daily basis. Boys and Girls Club, the Lowell school system, academics, professors, and interns from the various universities from UMass Lowell to Harvard, the city workers who park in the adjacent parking lot. And these are just a few of the people we service. We also represent and serve the important artist population of this community, destination location visitors to the national park, and regional, national, and international visitors from all over the world. I am not sure a lot of other organizations can say this. Again, we truly bring economic vitality to the community and are changing children and families' lives and showing them a sense of belonging to a community. These programs are actually life-changing for all of us. We are a unique arts organization, not only a historic house museum, but the birthplace of the famous American artist James McNeill Whistler, but also the Lowell Art Association Incorporated, the oldest incorporated arts organization in the country. Maintenance is a big issue in the park. Where we privately own the park, it has become more and more difficult to maintain. My budget for this project was only to bring the park up to speed in general with a new, expanded, and efficient design. In spite of constant care, we have been losing trees and shrubs because of the elements and disease. This fall alone, I lost 2 huge trees that rotted from the base. Those trees took thousands of dollars to chop up and take away. We also lost shrubs, boxwood bushes, dwarf evergreens to disease and too much rain. Also, there is a stream that runs under the park, and so that needs to be taken care of in order to prevent more damage to the lighting system that surrounds the Whistler statue. I have already had to replace those lights twice since taking over the museum 9 years ago. We also have to pay for the removal of trash, which gets to add up in cost. It is overwhelming at times, but still a very worthwhile part of our organization. The budget I presented in my proposal was the least expensive of the estimates I received from the 3 landscape companies. The estimates ranged from $700,000 and $500,000, rounded figures, to this $450,000 amount, of which I am asking for $400,000. I did not include the need to electrify the park more efficiently and safely, adding more lighting, security, and surveillance in order to make the space safer for more expanded venue activities such as concerts, festivals, adult art classes in the evening. With no lighting at night, we have had the homeless pitching tents in the corner of the park, taking showers from our water sources, charging their phones in the electrical outlets to the right of the historic house, which to me is minor. But sadly, drug abuse with needles found all over the property. In addition to my proposed plans, I would like to build a special activities section in the right side corner of the park for children, then an Asian sculpture and meditation garden, in the courtyard with yoga classes and other classes for children and adults, all open to the public. It is also a learning center for studying plants, flowers, trees, and shrubs in a gardening and landscaping environment. I sponsor a gardening and landscaping program each year now for low-income and middle-income young children, and we teach with them with professionals from in the field. Please remember that we also have a 200-year-old house to maintain and repair and restore. I just spent over $5,000 this week to repair damage done by squirrels and birds and rain to the clapboards and wood frame of the house. It is constant. I'm not whining. I just want for everyone to realize that there's a huge expense and a lot of responsibility that goes with this property. Even though it's in the heart of the city, 1.5 blocks away from City Hall, the park is amazingly enough a sanctuary for small animals, birds, and dogs. It is truly a haven for relaxation, wonderful activities, and an oasis for everyone to enjoy. I can't stress the importance of this project enough. We really do need your help. Now what I would like to do is to address the comments from your October 21st memorandum, which I might have answered in brief with the presentation I already made. Is that the way you would like to proceed, or would you like to ask me the questions of the memorandum?
I think if you would like to go ahead and do that as part of your presentation, that would be fine.
Okay. So when I looked at the memorandum, comments 1 through 4, I thought were sort of self-explanatory. We are considered eligible under the open space and outdoor recreation. And then the total budget is basically what it is, 450 total for what was proposed for demolition, prep, hardscope, site improvements, landscapes, and irrigation. The timeline proposes starting work in 9/22 with an estimated completion date of 11/22. Give or take, I mean, right now, that's what we're projecting. We're learning each day as we work on projects such as these. The applicant notes that the park is located in the downtown Lowell Historic District and would require, I believe, historic board approval. I asked Steve Stoll about this. I haven't heard back exactly, but I think I want to make it acceptable to the historic board, so it shouldn't be a problem. Question number 5. Both the park and the courtyard will be open to the public in adherence with CPA funding requirements. We are presently thinking the courtyard will be closed perhaps after dark, though. I am pretty certain this will be acceptable, but I'm not sure. We can discuss that. It will be open throughout the entire day. My fear is just security, and even though we will have additional security, the courtyard sits behind the historic house, and it's a very secluded area. So that's my concern. Otherwise, it's open. It will be open to the public. We use it all the time for the kids' programs and events and rentals and what have you. Question number 6. Yes, we have worked on projects somewhat similar in nature, and yes, Toshiko Mori and Reed Hildebrand have extensive experience working on projects of this nature. May I add that although Toshiko Mori is an internationally known Harvard-affiliated architect, her fee was lower than any of the other architects we interviewed. The reason for that is that she loves working on community projects of this type. Reed Hildebrand gave us a reduced fee for their services as well. This unique project was very sought after by a lot of contractors and architects. However, COVID has sort of put the project not on hold. We're moving forward, but at a slower pace. We need to, the costs of the project went up by 30–40%, and supply and demand right now is not at the best. So we're doing the best we can. Plus, we are fortunate to have a very experienced group of community leaders on our building committee, so know that we will not be steered wrong. Question number 7, regarding the scope of work, and yes, again, the courtyard will be open to the public. That was another question. Question 8, we have a number of activities there presently, and we have had them there for a number of years since the park was built. Ever since I've come on board, we've increased programs tremendously, particularly for young children and adults, and particularly for children in that acre section of the city. One of the most economically challenged sections, by the way, of not only Lowell, but in the state of Massachusetts. With more efficient design of the land, expanded space, which we will have because the footprints of the new building will be smaller than the footprints of the present building because we're going up 2 stories. And as I said earlier, it will be state-of-the-art. But with the more efficient design of the land, expanded space, added electricity, security, and surveillance into the evening hours, we will be able to provide more improved classes, concerts, festivals, rentals to provide revenue, yoga and meditation classes, and all other imaginable activities for all age groups. We also will be supplying programs or will be accessible to people with disabilities. That's of utmost importance to me. Question number 9. From a distance, your observation was that the park looks pretty good, that it's in good condition. But you need to look more closely. As mentioned earlier, in spite of ongoing work and maintenance with landscape people and professionals and tree experts, tree shrubs and bushes, plants have been lost to disease and excessive rain. There are underlying issues, as I mentioned earlier. Question number 10, yes, well, since first presenting for eligibility, there are new ideas and proposals that we have come up with and created. The original budget was for reworking the present park and courtyard. We feel experienced, but also learning as we go with each creative idea that we can come up with or that we see has been done elsewhere in either the city or in other locations throughout the state. Question number 11, we predict that programs run by the museum in this expanded new space will increase by 50%. It will increase visitorship from all various areas and use by at least 30% the first year. Question number 12, yes, as mentioned earlier, this project cost was the least expensive of all the estimates that we received. It had to do with your asking for a possible reduced amount for the project. Question 13. We know that this was the least expensive proposal we received. Please know that in the past we have come to the city to support our many youth programs, and that any funding you do distribute to our organization will be treated and regarded very highly. With this comes our sincere promise to be good caretakers of both the resources of the Whistler House organization and of your generous contributions. After all, it is our taxpayer monies, mine and those of you who live in Lowell, that we will be the monies that we will be using. So we will treat it with the utmost respect and appreciation. I do have one final word. I don't know if you have questions for me. At this point, this is more than one final word, but it's just a short paragraph. We know that this project will add tremendously to the enjoyment, amusement, relaxation, and pleasure of the community. It will provide shade and comfort and increase urban ecosystem services, habitat for birds, food for insects, nutriment for soil, and increase the use of trees. As well as physical health, studies have shown beneficial associations between green space exposure and reduced stress, positive mood, less depressive symptoms, better emotional well-being, improved mental health and behavior, and decreased psychological distress in adolescents. And Lord knows we need this after COVID, the 2 years of COVID. And well-being to a general feeling of goodwill, inclusion, ownership, promise, and a sense of belonging to the community. We need your help. We really hope that you will help us fund this project.
Thank you very much for the presentation. In a moment, we'll have, I'll open it up for questions from the committee, but first I wanted to ask, do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this proposal? Anyone else to speak in favor? No one on the Zoom as well? Okay. Anyone to speak in opposition? Opposition? Hearing none, I will open it up to the committee for any questions of the applicant. Anyone online have any questions?
This is Member Gallivan. I just have one question. I want to thank the applicant. I think the presentation was really clear and answered most of my questions. The one question that I do have is it looks like in the application that the timeline for the landscape work is fall of 2022. And so I was just curious if that's the same what is the construction schedule for the building? Is it the same as the landscape construction schedule?
Well, we're trying, honestly, with each passing day, we're trying to come up with a definite timeline for this. There could be some delays. I mean, we're already delayed with the actual construction. We were to demolish the building in August of this year, start construction in October and November. So we have pushed it out already till September to start the landscape project. But again, with each passing day, we're just not certain because of what COVID has done to the project. I don't know if that answers your question, but we're trying to do the best we can to do it as soon as possible, but, you know, in a time-efficient manner.
So does that mean you would break ground on the new building in September of 2022?
Perhaps so, perhaps not. I mean, at this point, if we start construction or demolition in the spring, then I see no reason why we can't start construction of the landscaping project at that time. But again, you know, we learn with each passing day on these projects, and we as an organization are not experts in this. We rely very heavily on the architect, our construction manager, our building team. So basically, that's the information I have available today.
I would expect that you would get into landscaping at least 1 to 2 seasons after, site work is started for a project of this scale. You need to get the shell and facade up at the very least before you can start decorating the outside. I just wanted to, as you gave this presentation, I envisioned this really beautiful open space that you've envisioned as well, I think, here. I hadn't really thought about it so completely. It was really, these images that I got while you're telling the story of what you're envisioning it was beautiful. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. I mean, it's really important to us, and the idea of enhancing it even more, because it's a beautiful space now, but, it's got its issues. But I think we can attack those and make the park better and service more people. I'm excited about it because it's very rare to have this kind of property in the center of a city like this. So, but I do appreciate your comments.
Any other comments from the committee? So this is, I just have one comment, a question, and it may be challenging to answer at this time, given your other answers. When do you anticipate kind of the expenditure of these funds? And is this a request that could be spread out over multiple funding cycles? Or is this something that because of timing would need to be funded in this cycle and not available in a future cycle?
No, I'm assuming that we obviously want to be able to get as much funding as possible to do the project the way we would like to do it and do it to the best of our ability. If it means requiring the funding to be distributed over 2 different cycles, I mean, I would think that that's something that would be acceptable, of course. I think with this project in particular, when we first spoke to the architects and the landscape architect, that this would all be done in phases anyway. And as different possibilities and creative thoughts and ideas would come about, that we would do them as we had the funds to do them. Yeah, it would be nice to be able to finish as much as we can, as soon as we can, but I guess that's determined by all of you,
Okay, thank you. I say that in 1, because it's a question that I've asked every applicant, but 2, because I do think Member Butenhuis is correct in that I think while the current existing park itself is probably a separate, could be done completely separately from the new building, anything that in the area of that new building that's a part of this landscape project would likely not be done until the new building is complete. Because you don't want to, if you've got workers walking around and construction going on, you don't do any kind of exterior work or landscaping.
Yeah, the
until that's
building's
done.
enough away from a lot of the park property, so I think you're right, where construction for the landscaping can be done, you know. And especially with lighting and security and surveillance, I don't think that should be a major issue. But you're right, around the footprint of the park, the smaller footprint, I think the courtyard area and that walkway in between, it's a pretty wide walkway, would probably have to be done last.
Okay, thank you. One last call for any questions? Okay, hearing none. We appreciate you coming in and giving.
Thank you, I
giving your
appreciate the
presentation.
opportunity, I really do. This has been very interesting. Thank you.
I will turn the chair back over to Chairman Backey.
Thank you for that. All right, our next order of business this evening is an application for 88 Middle Street. Middlesex Community College has applied seeking $458,708 of CPA funds for a historic preservation project. The applicant proposes to use the funds to restore historic characteristics of the historic Derby building.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to be here this evening as the fifth and newest president of Middlesex Community College. I'm thrilled that the Community Preservation Committee would consider our application for this important project for the college. I will start with the fact that Middlesex has long been an incredible steward of historic properties. That's how we got our start in the city. We have done that with a number of buildings, and this particular building is no exception to that. It is an incredibly important building, as is all of Middle Street, to the vision of what we do. At one time, that was our STEM area in the city of Lowell. This particular building is housing our historic efforts to really support both the health programs and our science programs. Thousands of students pass through its doors every day. It is a building that has needed some additional sort of tender loving care with this historic window replacement that will be part of our effort here. So the Derby construction costs have been identified, as you've noted, as $458,000. This is a project that is so important to the entire vision of what Middle Street can be for Middlesex. We are in the process of developing a STEAM project for our Pollard building that is an acquisition that we hope to make and renovate. We've already requested from the Department of Capital Asset Management over $29 million for that renovation. These particular windows and the efforts that we want to make in this building are really all about the upgrading since we have been in the building since 1994. Critically important that these funds come from the Community Preservation Committee as an option. We have, at a time where we've had declining enrollment and an operational budget that has been under stress, we do not have the available operating budget to resolve this particular issue. And in addition, the college has over $80 million in deferred maintenance just in the city of Lowell alone in the buildings that we currently occupy. We anticipate that we would add approximately $120,000 to this project, that we do not have DCAM funds available. The state will not fund this particular type of project. We anticipate that we've been able to, and with the house doctors that we've worked with, make sure that we could do this in January as soon as possible. We have the Talbot, Pollard, and Derby buildings that are on Middle Street, along with the work that we've done on the main railroad depot at 240 Central Street. We have identified many, many times that the college has been a real steward of these kinds of historic preservation efforts. So we can't use state funds to actually do this kind of work. The annual capital budget is really primarily for emergency capital expenditures at the college, and as I've noted, during a time of declining enrollment, we really are doing everything we can to keep the quality of our academic programs and our buildings in place. Our annual capital budget is for emergencies only. We'll be funding that $120,000 from operating monies that we have set aside to be able to continue this work. Happy to answer any questions. All of these windows are best completed all at the same time in the kind of work that we would like to do on this building. It's long overdue. I would also say that I can't tell you enough about, as a new president, how important it is to be able to present beautiful facilities to students. Students are making decisions every day about their activity in the city of Lowell and their opportunity to really gain an education in the city of Lowell. And our students and our faculty and staff are incredibly proud of the historic preservation projects that we've been able to engage in here at the city. This would just be one more, and more importantly, would be able to bring us up to code and to be able to deal with some of the problems that we would have. Most of our monies in terms of the projects that we have right now are dealing with ADA compliance and deferred maintenance. And so this would be a real opportunity for us to do this in a way that we would not have that opportunity through the regular budget. What I would say is that we've already been fully allocated everything that we could possibly get for critical deferred maintenance, and it's all gone to accessibility, safety, and security in a number of our buildings. That particular building has an elevator that needs to be replaced, and that will be our focus on the safety and security of our students. This opportunity is to really bring the building to its glory in terms of, as we've had with so many other historic buildings in the city. And so we are very proud of the work that we've done, and we're delighted that you would entertain this particular project for the institution.
Thank you very much. Before we get into questions, is there anyone else this evening who would like to speak on this application? All right. Hearing none, are there questions from the members of the committee? Go ahead, Eric.
So I do think you answered this question. I mean, the timeline that you are proposing is beginning in January and extending until, what do you have a rough window as to how long this project is likely to take?
Actually, as in most of the kind of projects that we entertain like this, it is really important for us to do it at a time when we have decreased activity in the buildings. I mean, we only have about 42% of our classes that are on campus right now, but January is our break time. So it would give us an opportunity to really get started with this project that might run into the beginning part of February, but we're pretty confident that we would be able to make sure that this project is completed by the time that we get to March break. So we think that this could be done at the beginning of the semester with little interruption based on the classes. We'd start with those, obviously, those windows that are most relevant to the sort of the classes that are going to be held, that are scheduled in that building for the later part of January, which is around January 27th.
Okay, and just to provide you with an expectation, Dylan, when's the next meeting of the committee?
1 second, let me pull it up.
Okay, all right.
January 16th, I believe. But let me confirm.
Yeah, so that would be, so the next meeting of the committee is January 16th, where we would meet and hopefully make a determination as to our recommendations, but the recommendations have to be voted on by the city council. So we would not be, there would not be a funding for the project until after recommendations and a vote by the city council to allocate it, and then there would have to be documentation signed between you and the city. I just wanted to kind of
Understood.
set appropriate
Thank you for that
expectations.
clarity. I think that what we're trying to do is make sure that we may be able to really expedite the project based on what we're doing in terms of the classrooms that are already in that building that will be active during the spring semester. But
Sure.
we can accommodate whatever opportunities that we have from the commission.
And the other thing is just making sure that that the college is comfortable with the historic preservation restriction on the property, which is a requirement of this level.
Absolutely. And as I've noted, we've had a long history of working in collaboration to make sure that those historic properties are up to code and up to speed, and with all of the input that we've had from the city, and we're very grateful for it.
Okay, thank you. That was my last question.
Do we have any other questions from members? I have one other question. So the budget appears to be based on a scope that you described as having developed with your house doctor designers. We have some comments from the Historic Board Administrator indicating that some of the elements of that scope may need to be revised in order to be compliant. I don't know for sure, but I suspect the revision may actually increase the costs of some of those items. How would you handle the situation if that were the case?
Yeah, and I think to some degree, we've anticipated that as we've identified in the budget, and we do have available to us operational funds to deal with that particular issue. So the college would be responsible for that. We have limitations, obviously, in those funds, but we have that Excel and contingency factor that's been built in based on the project. So we are ready to move with the other funding and be able to provide all the other wraparound funds that we would need to be able to complete the project.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
One last call for any other comments or questions? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Our next item is an application for 228 Worthen Street. Girls Inc. of Lowell has applied to the Community Preservation Committee seeking $352,925 of CPA funds for a historic preservation project. The applicant proposes to use the funds to reimburse themselves for the purchase of the property at 228 Worthen Street and for architectural consulting work associated with the historic preservation of the building. Do we have somebody to speak on behalf of this application?
Yes. Hi, this is Ashley Phillip. Hello, committee. You have two people, actually. I'm Ashley Phillip. I'm the executive director of Girls Inc. My apologies, I'm not with you today. Unfortunately, I'm in COVID quarantine. It just seems like it's never ending. I also have EJ Krupinski with us from EBI Consulting, who has been working alongside of us on this project for a year now. Girls Inc. of Greater Lowell, as you know, has a long-standing history in this community, over 104 years. We started as the War Community Service Center back in 1917. So we were serving war men, and we were doing dances and teaching home economics and cooking and sewing to women in the community. And we have since evolved to inspire generations of girls to be leaders in this community, to be strong, smart, and bold. We are a licensed child care provider too, through the early education and care through the state of Massachusetts. And we serve girls ages 5 to 18 years of age. And we are in community schools, in Lowell Public Schools and in Lawrence Public Schools doing outreach. So we serve over 1,000 girls annually through our programming. I'd like to just chime in and just say Phil Sisson and Sarah have been avid supporters of Girls Inc. of Greater Lowell. We have done programming with the Whistler House Museum across the street throughout the summertime, as Sarah alluded to, and Phil is a current board member of Girls Inc. of Greater Lowell. So we can't thank them enough for their support and the work that we do as well. But I know you had many questions regarding some of the elements that were going to be used in the project, and I thought it would be best to just bring EJ on board so that he can speak to the construction project. And we are aiming to start mid-March. That is when we will begin construction on 228 Worthen. And it is expected to take 5 to 6 months. So we are excited to be launching that public-facing campaign here in March. And on one last note before EJ takes it away, I am very proud of the work we've done in the past year. As you know, we have been the highlight of some unpleasant news, and we have done a really great job of turning this organization around. We are operating in the black right now, which is something that we are very, very proud of. So we are great stewards of the money that we are donated and receive from grants and foundations, and as well as just being really good at managing our finances. So without further ado, I will give you EJ Krupinski from EBI Consulting, who will speak to the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, and thank you to the board for continuing to hear this petition for funding for Girls Incorporated of Lowell. We have been working on the project for a long time. We are the architects and engineers of record. It is a renovation, and I apologize if I'm talking about information that you already know about, but we are renovating the less than 3,000 square foot building on Worthen Street, and going to combine that building with the existing two buildings on Worthen Street that make up Girls Incorporated currently. In the end, this would become a 3-building campus on Worthen Street. The project is really twofold for us. It is joining the interior campus of Girls Incorporated and giving clarity to the interior organization of those buildings as a campus, and the safety also. The building has been chopped up over the years, but also there's been a bit of hardship on Girls on the owner's part with bringing the systems up to date, as well as the safety systems like sprinkler systems. We have been in close contact with inspectional services and historic throughout the process to let them know this is definitely a phased project for affordability for the client. But it's always been a project of twofold. One is clarifying and helping the educational spaces for the clientele on the interior. And it's always been a weighty project as you look at the campus on the exterior of Worthen Street. The weight of the first proposal here at 243, the Whistler Museum, opposite this campus, and the holistic improvement of Worthen Street is a primary focus, as I said, one of two for us. The ultimate goal, well, the building, as we know, started off as an educational club, Miss Hills. It's an 1840 building, and our exploration from the interior, everything from the balloon type framing on the interior to other details in the building confirm that it is. And with that come challenges to bring it up to date. One of the goals has always been, as we sat down with the client and discussed not only the interior but the exterior as far as preservation, to keep the Worthen Street looking as a 3-building assemblage on that side of Worthen Street. So our intent with 228 has always been not to change it drastically and also to improve it, but be very mindful of where it was in the past and continue this. So items of preservation on this structure would be, we are going to try to find out if the existing clapboards, if they're existing, if they're the original ones, and if they're able to be saved on the exterior. So the exterior skin would be a clapboard type material. It's one of the items that is flagged for historic as we go forward with the project. Number 2 is, over time, window openings have been blocked up on this building. It's a fairly straightforward rhythm of windows, and we propose to put back those windows where they've been boarded up. And the windows that we're proposing to put into the project are as close to historic as we can get. We're looking at using not a true divided Muntin lights, but Architect series of Pella, which have a very beefy look to them, and it's close. We do have experience in historic renovation. We've just recently finished up the renovation of the Jared Coffin House on Nantucket, and there are different levels of restrictions as far as what windows and things go on. But in this one, we're trying to navigate at a medium to high level as far as putting things back. As you look at the front of the middle building, there are the buildings as a whole, there's a rhythm to the street, which has to do with the entries. They set back, and then the building pushes forward, and they set back. As we link these buildings too, we've been very much aware of that. And I know the link is not part of the preservation, but it does play a part of that rhythm in that it sets back from the street. It is made to be background versus foreground as far as what you would see. Other items that would be of concern historically and preservation wise would be the front door is going to remain in the same spot. We are proposing side lights similar to the middle building on the street. A lot of these items are documented in original photographs of Mrs. Hill's Educational Club. The one item that was new probably around World War II is the porch. And because of funds, we are planning to leave the existing porch on there. And, but there will be updated details. Additionally, finally, I guess the roofing on the materials, we've been in close contact with Historic. We do want to put this back, but we are proposing to use an asphalt type shingle. And then lastly, preservation wise, if you do stand on Worthen Street and you do look down the street, the phase project will in the future eventually turn to the two existing buildings of the campus. But right now we're focused on the 228 building, which was boldly acquired by Girls Incorporated. And we do ask for your assistance in funding to try to put this campus back and create the magnificent Worthen Street, put it back to where we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak on this application? All right. Hearing none, do we have questions from the members? Vice Chair is always good for a question.
Yeah. Yeah, so can you just speak with some clarity about the scheduling for the project? Like, when do you expect to break ground and on the work, and how long do you expect that to take place?
We are expected to start mid-March, depending on weather, and our Nash Construction, who we are using, says it's going to take approximately 5 to 6 months. And that's for 228 Worthen. And then, like EJ said, we will be moving into 220 and renovating those structures as well. But 228 will take between 5 and 6 months.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions?
I don't have any other questions.
I'd like to understand a little bit better about the budget for the project and the intent with respect to the funding. You've described the intent or the intended use of the funds is essentially reimbursement for expenditures that you've already made. I guess it also looks like you've been very successful in your fundraising, for which I definitely congratulate you. It's tough to do these days. I guess I'd like to understand a little bit how the introduction of these funds, it appears, will then free up some resources for you, and how Girls Inc. would use the resources that are freed up, if those would also be used for a historic purpose of some sort, for example.
Yeah, so we are budgeting about 1.4 just for the construction of this building. Our capital campaign is for $3 million, but we know that we'll probably be exceeding that based on some of the items that just need to be touched. We also have a squirrel problem like Sarah, and we know that we're going to have to do some roof work. We would like to repair the outside of the clapboard and repaint it. We would like to make sure that there is a flow between the campuses so that we don't have this bright new building and then really two other buildings that really need some TLC too. So I've replaced the water heater already in 220 Worthen. Our air conditioning units need to be replaced. There is just a lot of maintenance. We do need to address the foundation in 220 Worthen in the basement. Because we've had lots of flooding in our basement. So there are a lot of big ticket items that we unfortunately just need to address that aren't even beautifying the property, but they are to maintain the property to ensure that we are around for another 104 years. So yes, this funding would go a long way in helping ensure that we can address all the issues that we would like to give the girls of this community what they deserve.
Thank you. One last call for questions from members. All right, I believe we're all set. Thank you very much. Our next presentation this evening, our project this evening, is 375 Merrimack Street, where some of us are sitting this evening. The city of Lowell has applied to the Community Preservation Committee seeking $473,713 of CPA funds for a historic preservation project. The applicant proposes to utilize the funds to restore stained glass windows within the Lowell City Hall. I see we have someone here to speak.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name's Stephen Stowell. I'm the Historic Board Administrator for the City of Lowell and the author of the grant application. As the chairman stated, the project does consist of the proposed restoration of the 24 windows in Lowell City Hall that are comprised of stained glass, 9 of which are in this chamber where some of you are sitting tonight. Previously, several years ago, when the chairman was the Planning and Development Director, all of the other windows, for the most part, in the City Hall were replaced. However, the stained glass in that project was not addressed, as the goal was mainly the energy efficiency of the traditional windows in the building. The building, as you know, was built in 1893 in the Richardsonian Romanesque style of architecture, and the building is well known for its remarkable details, both inside and out. Many of you are sitting at original desks and furniture that date to when the building was built, and the stained glass is original to the building as well, when it opened in 1893. As stated, it is on the State Register of Historic Places through virtue of being located in 2 historic districts, the namesake City Hall Historic District, as well as the Lowell National Historical Park and Preservation District. The windows need varying degrees of attention. It's proposed that all 24 would be removed off-site to a studio, and the current studio we've been working with on the estimate over, I won't say many years, we'll say several years, is Lynn Hovey out of Boston, a renowned stained glass restoration company that has done work in the city before, nearest to us, especially at St. Anne's Church with the several Tiffany and Lafarge windows they have there. They're a top-notch firm, and in looking at the windows, again, varying degrees of work are needed on them. Some are sagging, some are buckling. What you see, it's still difficult this evening to see without daylight, but they need re-leading completely for the most part. The vertical members that you see on the windows are steel rods and reinforcement. That would also be addressed as well. That's original to the windows. They would also be cleaned as well, and I think that's probably the thing that would be most noticeable is the cleaning of the windows, because once the years of carbon and soiling are removed from the airborne pollutants, the light that will come through these windows will be, I think, very dramatic and noticeable. It's been stated that, that could we prioritize the windows, and I think that this could very much be a phased project if that's the approach that we need to take. And if I were to actually address the windows in immediate attention, I would probably say the 3 that are in the turret to your right. One is broken. Partially, it's in the corner up here. So the upper is missing some glass, and I would say that we would probably address those at the 35415 number first, along with probably the one that's in the mirror chamber to this council chamber, the current room 55, where a lot of the inspectors and clerks sit at the opposite end of the building. There is one window in there. It's very similar to the arched ones here that has maybe lost half of its integrity. The glass is physically missing at this point. So that one would probably be, if you're looking at 351,670 for the 13 large radius windows, that's what these are, the large radius windows. These 6 that you see here and the others in that chamber. We would break that one out probably in the other chamber because it needs reconstruction. We do have some of the missing glass intact. When we have it in an envelope in my office, it's there. It fell many years ago, unfortunately. But we would probably focus on that window. Probably, I would say around 40 for that one alone, just because it needs to be reconstructed. Glass has to be matched and so forth. So if there were priority critical windows, I would say easily address the ones that are broken first. Easier windows that could be done as a phase would probably be, as noted on the memo from staff, probably be the C, D, E, and F windows, the ones that are in the public landing of the main stairway. Those would probably be very easy to break out if you wanted to do a so-called pilot project, let's say. We could do a few of those depending upon, the condition and so on. Those would be the ones that, the public would be most apt to see on a daily basis, coming in, going up and down the stairs. So there are ways to kind of finesse this depending upon funds available with a lot of the other deserving applicants as well. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have about, the process of doing this or the history of the windows or anything like that. And I thank you for your consideration of the application.
Thank you very much. Do we have anyone else who wishes to speak on this application? Well, do we have any comments or questions from the members? No questions on this one?
Shockingly, I know
You're-
about this.
You're doing well here, thank you.
Sorry. This one I'm familiar with.
I have one fairly minor question as well. The number you've obtained as an estimate here appears to be from an actual vendor. I assume you've thought about the fact that public procurement's going to be necessary, and you may not ultimately be that member.
It may be competitive, and others may bid, yes. There are others in the area that do this kind of work in addition to Lynn Hovey. So I know, for example, some of you may be familiar with the Pawtucket Congregational Church up at the Falls at Mammoth Road. They had a multi-phased stained glass restoration project done about a decade ago using a lot of the Mass Preservation Projects Fund money through Mass Historical Commission, and they used a different company as well. So there are others out there that can do this as well.
Great. Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
No, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, we have one more applicant this evening, which is 80 Gorham Street. New Gorham LLC has applied seeking $178,100 of CPA funds for a historic preservation project. The applicant proposes to use the funds to repair the facade and complete structural work on the property located at 80 Gorham Street. The property has fallen into disrepair and requires significant structural work to redevelop the property. Do we have somebody to speak on behalf of this project?
Yes, I'm here, Leo Montero.
Excellent.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can.
Yes, good evening, members of the community. My name is Leo Montero. I am the manager and property owner for New Gorham LLC. I am also the contractor and developer for this project. I've acquired the building. I have done other projects within the city. I've been working in the city of Lowell, investing, rehabbing, and restoring properties since 2019. This past July, I've acquired this property that has been sitting vacant and condemned for quite some time. I have since then cleaned out the building, demoed the building, added a fence to prevent people to be using the premises. There was a lot of drug use in the area. A lot of people were congregating in the back of the building and causing all sorts of issues to the neighbors. So we have since acquiring the property in July, have done some stabilization work, some cleaning out, and some demo work. We have also developed plans for a possible for a development project. We have acquired the approvals from both planning board and zoning board. At this time, we are getting ready to submit our final application for the historic board of approval within the city. Steve Stoll and both Dave Fuller have been working closely with me on this project, and they have been aware of our progress and the team players that are working on advising us and counseling us on the approach to take in order to repair the front facade of 80 Gorham Street. The front facade has, due to the age of the building, the lack of maintenance, and possibly some faulty previous work that was done some decades ago. The front facade has bulged about 6 inches out. So it has reflected out about 6 inches and is pretty visible to the naked eye if you walk on the street. The building is stably sound. We are working with Ed Moll from Structures North. He has been involved in the process since July, since about, actually, I take that back, since about August or so, August, September, has developed plans in order for us to approach this. And we have, since starting the work of exposing the existing structures, we have established with the engineering team that we will have to take it down a good portion of the front facade, about 55% of the front facade, by hand, brick by brick, in order to pull back the horizontal lintels on the first floor that have bulged out, that have caused the bulging of the front facade. After that work has been completed, we will then properly reinforce the existing tieback system. We will then rebuild the wall to its current historic standards, obviously with the approval and the guidance of the city's historic board and Steve Stoll. And I'll mention that again. He has been part of this process as well to date. This project, this work is very, very important for the building. I need to get this done in order to keep going with the construction and the structural repairs that are also needed. I am asking for funds just for this portion of the work. We are anticipating to be investing over $1 million in the historic portion of the building alone, let alone the addition that we're proposing, that we have our approvals for. And we believe that, this is will greatly improve and keep on improving the area, and will keep on benefit, the neighborhood and the beautiful center and square that the building is located on. I'm also working right down the street on 62 Gorham. I've been managing that project, and it's been a fun and exciting and challenging journey to see the area change, and and we're hoping to keep on breathing new life, so more positive things can come from this.
Great. Thank you. Do we have anyone
Thank
else?
you for taking the time to consider the application as well.
Great. Do we have anyone else to speak on this application? All right. Do we have any questions from any of the members?
This is Member Gallivan. I just have one question.
Yep, go ahead.
I might have missed it in the application or the presentation. What is the final use of the property after it's rehabilitated?
So the current existing building consists of 5 residential units and 2 storefronts, and we are keeping that as is. However, we are adding and have been approved, as I mentioned, by the planning board and the zoning board, to add an additional 7 units in the back. The property sits on a large parcel of land. There is a underutilized structure that actually is condemned. It's poorly built. It has to be rebuilt anyway in the back. So we are taking that down, expanding it some, and then building the units that were approved in the back portion of the lot. So it will be a mixed-use building between commercial spaces and market rate rental units.
Thank you so much. That's
You're
all.
welcome.
Okay. Member Wootenice?
Quick question for you. Is the reparation of this facade and structural work would be critical to the completion of this project, right?
Correct. Yep. They are our next critical step in order to keep on going. I've done as much as I could to this point. We just had the plans finally prepared and approved and signed off, and we are getting ready to hopefully get going with this work. But to answer your question, yes.
I'm curious about the potential of this project to progress forward, whether or not you receive funding from this committee.
I have secured a good portion of the funds so I can keep on before before we take the facade apart, I have to do a bunch of structural work and reinforcing and shoring work. A portion of that work has been completed to date, so we could stabilize the building better. But now I would be doing, there are structural pieces, structural components of the work that I can be doing at this point that are not the most costly portion of the scope, but I will be able to absorb with the funds that I have currently secured. I am also already talking with multiple lenders and also some lenders that are community partners to hopefully partner with us in order to keep the process going.
Is there any scope of work above, minimum permittable work that you would accomplish if you were to be funded by this committee?
Could you please clarify the question?
So, as a developer, I'd expect that you're, reaching your, rentable completion of project by minimizing costs and satisfying the boards that you're going in front of in order to get your permitting. Is there anything above the minimum allocation of cost for completion, permitting through historic boards, zoning boards that you would be trying to achieve if you were funded by this committee?
I have, thank you for clarifying that though. I have already acquired all the approvals. I have developed the plan. We have completed the development phases for the project within the city. The last board that we're going to be in front of, and we're hoping to be that in front of them next January, is the historic board. So I have already gone through that process and funded, and it's all paid for. Obviously, it's completed. We have plans, structural plans, all the approvals. If I'm clarifying, if I'm answering your question correctly.
I've got enough information. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Member DePiz. I just have a quick question. Looking at your timeline, item C, masonry reconstruction proposed for January. Usually it's difficult to work masonry in January, given that the temperatures are below 42 degrees. And, usually construction is more expensive because you have to heat that area. How were you planning on doing that? Were you looking to actually, if you can just let me know, how were you actually planning to do the masonry work in January?
No, absolutely. It's a great point you bring up. We are anticipating to have winter conditions built into the budget. As mentioned, I am already mobilized on site. No actual work is being taken place at the moment, but I am fully mobilized. I am on site. I am working a couple of doors down. We might not necessarily be putting up new masonry work, but I could be taking down, after I do my temporary structural shoring, I could be working on taking down and cataloging the masonry work. We have to take down brick by brick, separate the brick because they're going to be reused. All the lintos, the salvage lintos and the stone sills, all have to be taken down and cataloged. So that's a little bit of tedious work and work that has to be done and could be done, in January. We can tarp and carry some temporary heat in the building, and some days like today wouldn't hurt either.
Okay, and I assume likewise for the repointing.
Absolutely, the repoint would only be done in the spring. We do whatever we can now just to secure and safely stabilize the property, stabilize the facade. But we are anticipating for, the cleaning, the repointing, the final finish work to be done to begin, once the weather breaks in spring.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from members? I have one question on this one. We have another application before us to potentially create a loan fund for exactly this type of project. And I'm curious if this is if your pro forma at the moment has the capacity to potentially take on this funding in the form of a loan, perhaps under quite favorable terms, or if it must be brought in the form of a grant in order to make your overall budget work.
Ideally, we would like it to have it in the form of a grant, and keep that in mind that I may have to absorb, and I have been absorbing additional costs due to the nature of the building, the nature of the work as well. So it's not an exact formula, an exact science at this point. However, if it turns out that this is the only path to be taken, I wouldn't say no to it. And it's actually, it's good to know that there could be options available to us in order to keep going with these projects.
Okay. Any further questions? All right, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for your time, members of the community.
Okay, so I don't miss it again like I did last meeting. We do have one other order of business this evening, which is the election of officers. So I guess we need to entertain nominations, I suppose, for the officer positions. Do we have a chair position and a vice chair position? Those are the only positions we have? So do we have any nominations for either?
Hi, this is Christine, and I'd like to nominate Adam Backey as the chair and Eric Slagle as the vice chair.
Second.
Drat.
Saw that one coming.
You guys do such a great job.
Christine just said that before somebody could put her name into the proposal.
We didn't know you were here, Christine. It's nice to hear from you.
Do we have any competition?
Drat.
All right. I guess, probably should do a roll call on this, I suppose, on the motion.
Chairman Bakey,
Yes?
Vice Chair Slagle,
Yes.
Member Butenhuis,
Yes.
Member DePesa,
Yes.
Member Liang, Member McCall,
Yes.
Member Gallivan.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody, I think.
Good work, guys.
All right, so do we have any other comments from the members this evening?
I just wanted to clarify, it's January 16th?
January 13th.
13th. January 13th is the next meeting where we're going to start deliberating and allocating funding. And I know that Adam, you brought it up before, but I just want to kind of reiterate, while I think it's great that we have Zoom meetings and have them available for folks, it would be really helpful if people were in person for those meetings, for the meetings during the deliberations, just because I think it's going to be a challenge to allocate funds that are significantly less than asks in this case. So that's just a pitch.
I guess I'd like to echo that pitch, that it really would be helpful. I mean, obviously, if there are reasons people need to be remote, especially given the sort of unfortunate trends with the pandemic at the moment, we understand, but I think it will be a lot easier to be sure that every member's opinions are heard and are able to be equally participatory if we are all in a room together for that discussion. I guess I'd also encourage if we could find a way to seat ourselves in the room so that we can actually see one another for that conversation. That would probably be helpful as well.
I was wondering if this room with members here, but also members at the chairs might make sense. And then we also...
And not to interrupt, but I wonder if for the deliberations, we could hold the meetings in the mayor's reception room?
Yeah.
It is equipped with camera and LTC, the same technology, and that's more conducive to conversations.
That would be
Yeah,
wonderful.
that's a good room. That's where we hold our historic board meetings. Yeah, that's a good room.
Yeah. I guess can we request that? I don't know how.
I would think as long as there's not another conflict, staff would be able to coordinate with the manager in the mayor's office to book it.
Okay. Well, if you could look into that for us, Dylan, that would be fantastic.
Yep, I will reach out to the manager's office.
Thank you. All right, look, this is not going to be easy, but I do look forward to, I think we have a great group of people on this committee. I'm sure we'll come to some really good conclusions. So, do we have any other comments this evening?
Before I quickly file a motion to dismiss, I just want to say on behalf of the city of Lowell, thank you everyone for your time and your volunteerism, and we really appreciate it. I wish you very happy holidays.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah, thank you. You too, everybody.
And with that, I motion to dismiss or adjourn the meeting.
Second.
I second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Thank you. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and everything else.
Yeah, happy holidays.